DLCs are something that is generally looked down upon in the gaming community. It doesn't have to be this way, but it is, because greedy game developers and publishers tend to grab what makes the most money. But it doesn't have to be this way. There have been quite plenty DLCs that have received critical acclaim. Look at The Witcher 3's Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine DLCs. Look at Red Dead Redemption's Undead Nightmare DLC. These are just a few examples of some DLCs that have received critical acclaim. Now, I I think that DLCs should follow a specific formula. Now, this formula follows something like it has to be something new, something we haven't seen in the main story. We see this in Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. We see this in Undead Nightmare. So all three of those get the checks. Has to be something exciting, a new adventure, complete new adventure. Something that feels like a new game, but but it's still set in the original game. Something that we we pay for because it's a good game. Something we pay for because it feels like a good game. It feels like a new game, but it's that game. It's still that game, but it feels new. A new part of it. Something an addition to it that is enjoyable. And when it is lots of content, which also DLC should have, then it's no problem paying the correct amount of money for that specific DLC. I think that this is why Undead Nightmare and the two Witcher DLCs did great. The Witcher DLCs brought in more content than many games that come out today, and of course I'm gonna pay real money for that. I'm gonna pay a part of the full game price for it. It's not hard for me to pay 20 euros when they ask me to pay 20 euros when they give me something like Blood and Wine, a new expansion, a new world. I'm playing as Geralt, but it's a new story, a new adventure, a new world with enormous map and something that just makes me want to explore it. Something that is exciting, but it is hard for me to pay 3 euros to buy horse armor, which just adds one quest that is basically this woman who says she'll give me a free horse armor, and after that I need to pay 500 gold coins for a horse armor. That's dumb. We don't need those kinds of DLCs. Let's look at uh Blood and Wine, but more detailed. Blood and Wine gave you, once you went in Velen, the second province in The Witcher 3, you gained a quest that was for a level 34 player recommended. And this quest said that you should look around the travel boards in Velen. So you look around, and suspiciously you seem to notice something on all of them, which seem to be these papers that seem to all be searching for you. And it turns out these Knights of Toussaint want to find you, to take you to Toussaint. So, because of the Duchess, she needs you for whatever reason, you don't know. And once you get there, you already feel a completely new feel, a new ambient. Already you feel a new ambient. Not just it's not just a new world, but a new ambient, a new atmosphere, and it manages to nail it perfectly. And we enter it, and there's already this big ass world, which I think is bigger than, and I would say better than any else of the Witcher maps. because it was just phenomenal how it nailed the atmosphere. One to get the Franco-Italian uh, culture type atmosphere. And not to mention the countless side quests and main quests it brought to the table, the new adventures. That it's basically a game in its own right, but it's still Witcher 3. People are not gonna pay 60 euros for that because it's not a game, it's not a full game, but it is The Witcher 3, and I'm okay with paying 20 euros. I'm more than happy than paying 20 euros for something like that. Let's look at Undead Nightmare for Red Dead Redemption. You see, this one, it takes place in the same map, but it managed to do something incredible, as in it managed to make a completely new atmosphere and story and something completely bizarre and creative out of something that just shouldn't be able to do something like that. Like a Wild West atmosphere, that's the last atmosphere you think of when you think of zombie apocalypse. But they managed to nail it perfectly. And once you start the DLC, you already see why you would pay money for it. You already see why you paid money for it. You already see why what it brings new to the table. It brings many things new to the table, and I think that that is great. I think that Undead Nightmare is one of the most perfect examples of a good DLC. It you so it starts off as John Marston just having a normal day returning to his family after an errand, and then his family gets infected by Uncle, who turned into a zombie somehow, and he ties them up and has to find a cure for them. So you set out in a new adventure, completely new adventure, and look for a cure. Look to find what happened. This brings a new adventure with new gameplay features such as towns being under attack, safe zones, missing persons. Overall feels like a new game, but you still know it's Red Dead Redemption. It feels like a new game inside Red Dead Redemption. That's why I would pay 20 euros for that, 10 euros for that. But again, I say I won't pay 3 euros for something like horse armor. It's just not practical. Not to mention the fact that developers these days and publishers seem to be really, really, really pushing out very low quality DLCs, map DLCs, literally adding maps for DLCs, for multiplayer game maps. That's not a DLC, people. Seriously, I think that was that was done very bad by doing that. It's just not how a DLC should be. Again, I say a DLC should be one. It should bring something new to the table, like a new atmosphere, new gameplay changes, uh, new whatever, like new weapons, whatever, new atmosphere, new gameplay changes, and overall be a new game, a new part of the game. Number two, it should still be a part of that game. Like I said, it if it isn't a part of that game, then it's not a DLC. Then it's just a random thing put into this specific game that for some reason has the title of a DLC for that game. It should be like a part of that game. It should feel also like a part. Now, an interesting form of DLCs is something done with the Fallout series or the Elder Scrolls series. Now, this checks off a lot of the places and seems to do all of it correct, but it's still not something you would consider DLC. It doesn't feel like it isn't like a new game within, it isn't like what a DLC should be, a new game within that specific game. It's more like of an add-on, like quest add-on or new map add-on for this specific, for a specific for a specific game, which sort of makes it not a DLC, but it checks off lots of the list. Like, let's say, and not to mention that many of those DLCs have also received critical acclaim because many of them had good stories and were done well. That's true, they were done well. And I guess it could be agreed with, since, I mean, it is €5, it's not €20. €5 each, and I gotta respect them for it. But then again, in Fallout 4, it can come to €20 to 25. But Fallout 4 did more of the traditional DLC sense, like the DLC I talked about, where it brought a new world and a completely new atmosphere and stuff like that in Far Harbor and Nuka World, and Automatron, which Automatron shouldn't have costed €10 because it really didn't add anything such as Nuka World or Far Harbor to it. So I still think Nuka World should cost less and Far Harbor, but it's still, you still get the price more than you get a map pack for €20, for example, or a weapon pack. I just think that developers and publishers really get the whole thing of DLC wrong, the whole point of it. I think it could be considered as a new adventure, a new experience and a new game within that game, instead of it being a random map pack or microtransaction just to rack up more money.